The KDKA Morning News with Larry Richard and John Shumway.
This is KDKA. I'm Larry Richard.
And I'm John Shumway. Good morning. Yeah, what was it? Just a couple of days ago, we finally got through tax-free day.
No, I think it's the 22nd, maybe.
Oh, you mean it hasn't come yet?
No, that was just a 2-week warning in advance. Anyway.
So we're still working for the government.
Always. And joining us on our Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline, our annual visit with the founder and principal of the McQuillan Group, Kevin McQuillan. Good morning.
Good morning, Larry. Good morning, John. How are you guys?
Doing well. Kevin, one of the things that I noticed this year, a couple of the forms that you get from, the 1099s, the W-2s, that kind of thing, they didn't come in until mid to late February in my case. Aren't they supposed to be in your hands or at least in the mail by the end of January?
Originally, yes. Most of the investment houses have asked for extensions, and candidly, we're beyond those extension dates. They just have had trouble getting this information out. They have reporting issues relative to cost basis and other issues they've reported that's really slowed down the process and really backed up the 1040 filing season for sure.
So you can use that as an excuse. I don't need to file because I didn't get my stuff until late.
Sadly, no. You can't use it as an excuse.
Oh.
You can use it as an excuse to file on time, but not pay on time, which is a real challenge for most people.
Yeah, part of the issue is trying to figure out what those numbers are, because if you're not accurate, you're going to be fined when you do eventually file. If you filed an extension, you have to pay. That's the big thing to remember, right?
Absolutely. You should do your best to file and pay what you think you owe. And I usually recommend buy yourself some wiggle room. If you haven't received the form or you don't understand it or haven't got out to your preparer yet or used your software, if you normally pay anyway, overpay, and anything when you finally finish your return can be applied to next year, and therefore you're not wasting money in a world where you can file within another month and you'll get that overpayment applied or returned. It makes a lot more sense because the penalties and interest are far more than the interest you might earn in a bank account or something like that.
All right.
It's just a waste of money.
Kevin, even if you have already filed, and I assume that if people are owed money as in a refund, they want to get that money as soon as possible. Others may wait, but everybody's getting this new form about health insurance. What do we do with that?
Well, it's created a ton of confusion this year. There have been multiple filings by organizations. I know one local, very large organization has issued several variations of it. Understanding this new law, providing all this information, basically what you're supposed to do with that is it's the proof that you had health insurance. If you didn't have health insurance, you could be subject to a penalty that gets assessed and added to your tax return. So there's not really a place to input that unless you don't have health insurance for a period of time in 15. If you were covered for health insurance during the year, you really have nothing to do. If you do not, it's actually fairly complicated. We've determined just because the reporting around it has been very spotty, so you have to figure out what months you were covered or not covered, and it's really bogged down some people who were in transition, say job-wise, or just not covered for a period of time, and maybe they were covered by their parents, maybe they were, all the different things that happen in life, and it's created a ton of confusion, and actually the few returns that we filed where we were not made aware of it, the IRS is aware of it, and they were already kicking out notices that, hey, we don't believe this person had health coverage for 3 months or something like that. So interestingly, the IRS is ready for it, but I wouldn't say necessarily the preparation community is.
Kevin, is innocently or not, what is the biggest mistake that most people make?
I'd say the biggest mistake that I see is probably not keeping documentation for the items they can deduct. I think most people tend to be very conservative and miss out on some deductions because we're not, as a whole, very good record keepers. And that when people do take the time to do that, they end up with things like more charitable donations as the most common example, or other things they paid that could be tax deductible. For example, business expenses that their employer doesn't reimburse. They just tend not to keep track of those things, so they miss out on. In terms of preparation, if they're still doing returns, believe it or not, by hand, some people still are, and that's just unbelievable to me because our tax code has gotten so complicated. It would be very challenging to do this by hand. Some people still try. I actually have an old retired engineer who likes me to check his calculation every year. and I can't believe he does it. He spends a lot of time doing it. And so I think it's probably that. I see that less and less, but that's probably the biggest mistake I still see.
Yeah, and then even if you file electronically, you have to have a record of a signature, but there is an electronic signature that allows you to do it.
Right. And that actually greatly, there's some hesitancy to still file electronically and to pay electronically and actually get refunds electronically, but that does really speed up the process. It is very automated, and it actually, if you want to get if you're due a refund, for example, you're able to get your money significantly faster if you electronically file and ask for electronic deposit. The other interesting one that I'm seeing more of is people are starting to pay electronically, say on April 18th, which you can do. But there's also a hesitancy for people to let the IRS take money out of their account, but by the same token, they'll let them put money in the account.
Yeah.
So
yeah, figure that one out.
It's a way to guarantee you don't have a late filing. And if you're paying a substantial amount, I certainly encourage it. And I try to go through that logic of, well, if the IRS was going to take your money, they already probably could. So why not let them take it at the very last moment and then not be subject to a penalty?
And finally, Friday is the official income tax deadline day, but due to a holiday in Washington, D.C., the deadline's moved to Monday, the 18th, correct?
Yes, it is. And I'm trying to keep that as quiet as possible. I'm telling everybody it's this Friday.
I hear you.
Don't tell anybody.
You'll have people coming in on Monday morning. Of course, then you'll charge double.
Kevin, look in my shoebox. I got all my stuff right here.
Yeah.
Yes, if we can keep that among ourselves, I'd prefer nobody else knows about that.
Well,
Deadline is Friday.
We appreciate your time on a very busy part of your schedule. Kevin McQuillan, founder of the McQuillan Group here in Pittsburgh, on our Disc Institute of Pittsburgh Newsline. Back to it. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, guys.